It's muting. Matt, there's someone that you need to mute.
Yeah, there we go. That's better. Yeah, cool. We're off. So good morning, everybody. As everyone knows who's been to these roundtables before, there'll no doubt be some people diving in over the next few minutes. But firstly, Lara, congratulations and welcome to your first event as president of the CIH. And thank you for reaching out to me going, Matt, can we do a roundtable? Because always, yes. I know we've done a number of these over the last couple of years, but always great to have you on board. So today is going to be very much, as always, to those who've come to a number of these, an open discussion. We're going to have some questions fired towards Lara, some of which have been sent over to me, some of which just want to get some clarification on. Please dive in at any point. Those who haven't been on before, feel free to use the chat function at any point, or use the reactions kind of raise hand gesture. I'll then bring you into the conversation and we'll go through. But today is very much about having a very open discussion about what this presidential campaign looks like and what we're aiming to do. To those who haven't engaged with me before, my name is Matthew Baird. I run a social housing recruitment business. I do it for myself. I've been doing this for 11 years nearly now. And the social housing roundtables came about from just trying to bring people together to try and make change in the industry. So I'm delighted that we've been able to do so. But without further ado, Lara, would you like to introduce yourself to those who you've maybe not spoken to with your official job title?
Oh, good morning. I can't see you all on my screen. Where's my screen gone? You've disappeared. Good morning, everybody. My name is Lara Oyedele. For those of you that haven't met me, I see lots of familiar names on the screen. My niece is on the screen as well. She's stalking me online. Hi, niece. So my name's Lara. I as of Friday, became president of the Chartered Institute of Housing, and I'm shocked, honoured, humbled, and totally shocked. If you'd have mentioned this to me 10 years ago or 20 years ago that I'd be president of a professional body, I'd be like, yeah, right, not in a million years. And guess what? It happened. Yeah. And do you want to know all the other stuff that I do?
yeah, please. Yeah,
amongst one of my many, I think I wear 5 hats at the moment. I'm a board member of Housing 21, which is one of the larger housing associations that provide homes for older people. I'm the chair of a homelessness charity in Bradford called Hope Housing. So I work at 2 ends of the housing provision sector. So Hope Housing is tiny. We have 11 staff. Most of them are outreach workers, and what we do is take people off the streets, off park benches, the bus station, and we find them emergency and hopefully eventually long-term accommodation. So that's 2 of my hats. I run a company called Black on Board, which is very much in line with my presidential campaign, which is about promoting ethnic diversity in the boardroom. There is a shortage of non-white people in boardrooms, and my business, Black on Board, hopes to make a dent into that shortage. And then last but not least, I also run a property company. So housing's everywhere. It's called Lara Homes because I couldn't think of a name. I thought Lara Homes, that's it. It's called Lara Homes Limited. And I'm aiming to provide affordable homes in the private sector. So I'm using all the ethos of everything I've learned in the social housing world, but with the flexibility and the independence of a private landlord, and to provide good homes to people. So that's all. Apart from that, I don't do very much.
Nice and quiet, just on an average day to day. Absolutely. And obviously, as I say, look, the reason we're here today is to talk very much around, I guess, what you're looking to achieve as CIH president and what that next year looks like. And I know when we were discussing a few different things before we met today, it was what do we want to try and achieve? But I guess the first question, certainly you and I have discussed, but that'd be really great for the room as well, was what does the role of the CIH president really entail? Yeah, so I'll pass that one over to yourself.
That's a great question, because I've asked previous presidents that, and I'm sure there's a couple of people on the call that have ambitions to be president, so hopefully this will help you. The role is essentially an ambassadorial role. Okay, so you're representing the organization. It is not paid, so you don't get any money for doing this. You do this for the love of housing. And the role is to represent the organization, increase membership. And I guess for me, the more important bit is to have a campaign of change, to do something to change the sector, change it for the better, or change sideways or backwards or forwards. Yeah, so that's the role. You're essentially the figurehead, the person they roll out, say, "Oh, this is CIH for the year," and then next be somebody else. And I'm just so grateful that members voted for me. And while I'm here, I've got to pay the bills. If you're on this call and you're not a member of the CIH, you need to write me 100 words to explain why not. You should be, you have to be. The more of us there are in the CIH, the bigger the impact that we have in terms of members. So there you go. I paid my dues to the boss. You don't pay me anyway.
Your important bit and the brief membership piece. So to anybody who hasn't seen on LinkedIn or on other platforms and things like that, the hashtag that started so far with your whole campaign has been "In My Shoes." So let's just go through muting a couple of people. There we are. So what do you mean by "In My Shoes," and where is that? I guess where does that tagline come from?
Right, in my shoes, it's an interesting combination of things that have impacted me in my life. So I wanted this presidency to be very representative of my experience in the sector. I joined the sector unofficially in 1989. And I just happened to get a job in a housing office. I didn't know what housing was. It was just a job. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember what a YOP was, Youth Opportunity Project or whatever it was. Anyway, I was a YOP. And I got a job in a housing office ordering repairs and putting stamps on an envelope. So that was my first housing job. But officially, I joined the sector in 1995 after I went off to university, got a degree, and decided I wanted to work in housing as a profession. And yeah, so I've been in the sector since 1995. And obviously, if you watch my progress, alongside other people that look like me that started at the same time. And as I've got higher up the ranks, I've noticed there's less and less, or is it fewer and fewer? I don't know which one is correct. Less and less people who look like me as I've worked my way up through the ranks. And now that I spend more time in boardrooms, and I've often been mistaken for the catering, the person in charge of catering or the cleaner. I remember my first board interview, meeting when I was at Southern, and I went into reception. The guy asked me if I was there for the cleaner's interview, and I was like, okay, no, I'm going to the top floor. Do you know? I've never been mistaken for a board member ever, but I have been mistaken for the cleaner, the caterer, the delivery person, usually cleaners and caterers. But anyway, so now that I'm in this position, I'm president. I sit on the boards of 2 housing organizations, and I always feel like I'm constantly representing a whole group of people who are not represented. And I ask, why? What's going on? What am I particularly a genius? What's so special about me that means I've made it this far? Or is there something stopping or blocking other people that look like me, who started like me in the 80s and 90s? Where have they gone? A lot of them are now freelancers, either working as consultants, or they're sitting in their jobs, miserable as hell, and not talking to anybody. That's the case. And then also because I love shoes. Anyone that knows me on Twitter, I love shoes. And I thought shoes, homelessness, these are all things that I've experienced. So it's definitely about walking in my, like Lara's shoes. It's about me, but reflecting that on the rest of the world. It's like everybody needs a decent pair of shoes. Nobody needs to be homeless. And everybody needs to know that if they join a sector, they can work their way up to the top. That's my passion. You should be able to walk into a sector and go, right, I want to be CEO, and it's reasonable for me to assume that I can make that happen.
And why do you think, I know when the discussion kind of around almost the other strap lines for your presidential campaign is anti-racism in the boardroom, and that's obviously where the discussion point today was first led, and I think where a lot of people have dived on and kind of gone, actually, this is the challenge. How do we, rather than just not be racist, how do we be anti-racist? And I appreciate that that's a conversation you've probably been having for going on your entire housing career, never mind other careers alongside. And you certainly won't be the only person in this room. You and I discussed before that actually defining anti-racism is in itself quite a difficult task. But where did this this idea of anti-racism focusing on the board come from? And what do you think are the problems we've got with boards at the moment?
Okay, brilliant question. Thank you. The first obvious thing I'd say is that we all know that boards set the culture of an organization. The organizational culture is intrinsically linked to what's happening in the boardroom. Okay, so that's my first important point that I'd make. And then in terms of tactics, there are quite a few programs in place that are trying to deal with diversity at the executive team level. Okay, whether we're making that, whether that's happening or not, it's debatable, but the work is taking place. And I noticed that there wasn't any, there were lots of different people doing different things in the board space, but as a bigger program, there hasn't been anything that focuses on diversity in the boardroom. And for me, I had to pick one. Trying to do one of these on its own would take more than a year. So I thought, I'll focus on the boardroom, and also because the business that I do is called Black on Board. The name is what it does on the tin, about diversifying the boardroom. Let me talk about something that I actually know what I'm talking about. I know what boards do. I know what the problems in the boardrooms are. So that's why I decided to focus on the boardroom.
And I guess where does this, from your experience of working with boards, on boards, with people trying to get onto boards, being anti-racist, what does that, and I appreciate it's difficult to define, we talked about this before, but we're going to try. For you, for you personally, what do you feel that a business needs to be showing in order to be anti-racist? Okay.
If you'd asked me this question 5 years ago, I'd give you a different answer to what I'm going to give you now. Because I'm, to an extent, sick of talking about it, but we need to keep talking about it. So in the olden days, I would have said, provide opportunities, be kind, have a pipeline, etc., etc. All the things that we know we should do, all the policies and procedures are out there, all the good practices out there. So I'm going to be for a more radical approach now and go, what we need to do now is make it compulsory. We have to say, your board must have at least X%. I don't know what the percentage is. 30% of your board have to be non-white men, or something along those lines, and make it compulsory. If it's, what's the word? If you have to comply with something, it gets done. Now, the nice answers to that are, we have internal programs that monitor the progress of be it Black staff, BME staff, whatever. I don't even want to get into the definition of Black. That's a whole other thing. So Black, BME, brown, non-white staff, whatever the wording is. We have internal programs that monitor their progress. We do mentoring. I am sick of hearing about mentoring programs. I'm not saying mentoring programs aren't good. Mentoring programs are brilliant. But I've been hearing about mentoring programs for the past 10 years, and I'm still looking at boards of housing associations that are predominantly white. So it's okay to have the mentoring program. It's okay to have the training program. It's okay to have people shadow people. But if the opportunities to get into the boardroom or to get into the senior leadership team are not being made available to the people who've been on these courses, where do they go? They go elsewhere. Or they sit in the corner and they're depressed about their environment. And I'm speaking, I can give you names of Black people that I know that fit into both categories, that are either fed up and have had enough, or have gone off and done something different. And you probably know loads of those people who are now freelancers, running their own consultancies, because they hit that ceiling in the sector. I've had enough of this.
I mean, you and I actually ran a roundtable probably about a year ago on this, which was, is there a glass ceiling? And actually, I think you and I both just, I mean, you'd already known, but I certainly discovered a lot during that call, was that whilst things may have got better and opportunities may have improved, because of the disillusionment that's gone on from previous experience that the people aren't applying. And this is what I know one of the big policies that you were hoping is trying to kind of inspire people, because I mean, thank you to everyone who commented on my post yesterday. I've been lucky enough just to become a board member at Spring Housing and a trustee of those, but that was from, you know, me just throwing my hat in the ring and just giving it a chance.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are kind of going, well, I haven't got enough experience yet to be on a board or anything like that. But actually, a lot of time it's just about putting your hat in the ring and realizing you've got more skills than you think you do. I will bring you in a second, Claire. I'm just going to let Lara answer that one.
Yeah, okay. So you can speak after me, Claire. I'll say this briefly. I forgot what I was going to say now. What was the point again?
I was saying about how, like, a lot of time there's issues with even applying in the first place.
Oh yes, yeah, two things. Yeah, so it's chicken and egg. So we have these 4 or 5 big recruitment companies. 2 of them have double barrel names. Yeah, no, 3 of them have double barrel names. You know them. And
not including me. Thanks, Lara. Cheers.
and what happens is they tend to tap candidates on the shoulder. They go to the same group of candidates that they know, and the board ends up with a long list and a short list of the same candidates. Now, okay, I've been involved in board recruitment as an observer on the board, and for the last 2 years, we've ended up with an all-white shortlist. And every time we've apparently gone to the consultant to say, can you give us a diverse shortlist? And we've ended up with an all-white long list and then an all-white shortlist. And then so still now I'm the only non-white person on the board. Okay, no, there's an Asian guy. Okay. So my challenge to my housing association, I've not heard this, if anyone's listening, this is the first time they're going to hear it, is the next board, because we recruit every year, the next board recruitment, can we make it an all non-white shortlist? Let's just do that. Have an entire shortlist of non-white men. Let's twist it. Let's be creative and innovative, because if you're doing the same thing all the time, you're going to get the same output. Why do you think all of a sudden they're going to get you a diverse shortlist when they've tried for the past 2 years and they've not been able to do that? So that's one part of the issue. And then the sandwich, the other part of the sandwich is that a lot of the people I work with on Black on Board don't register with these organizations, these big 4, because they say they're not looking for people like me. So obviously these big 4 don't have the people that they need on their books. So I'm trying to connect the two. People say, oh, well, they don't want me. I never get shortlisted. They're not looking for people like me. So then you've got people that they're looking for not registered with them. And the agency's trying to find diverse people and don't know where to go find them. I don't know if that's answered your question, Matt.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the other way is use me for it, but that's fine.
Yeah, we'll just
I'll represent anybody. You know, I mean, it's if people have board recruitment and actually want a diverse shortlist, because this is what forums like this are about. And actually, there's a lot of people agreeing with you in the chat. Maureen has just put there, I'm heavily involved in mentoring programs and I'm proud of the impact, albeit on an individual. But I agree with Mina that Black people just are leaving the sector and actually going off and being consultants because they're finding those ceilings. Claire, thank you for being patient. Do come in.
Thanks, Matt. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm on earbud things. So anyone who knows me will know that I have feelings about EDI monitoring and reporting and how it doesn't necessarily improve anything. And there are other ways that we should be improving equality and diversity and inclusion. However, rather than that part of it, I'd like to support Lara's comments on the going out to find a diverse shortlist or long list. The data protection law specifically includes a section on basically headhunting ethnic diversities for senior leadership. And I don't think enough people know that. Recruiters or the actual organisations who are looking to recruit, that there's probably a fear of feeling that they would be breaching some sort of data protection if they went out and said, hey, you're non-white, would you like to apply to be on our board or be a senior leader? It's not just boards, it's kind of senior leaders. So I think that should be more widely known about, and that should be more widely used, with the proviso that it should be used carefully, of course, And there are ways to do that, and obviously I can help with that if anyone's thinking about that. But I would support what Lara says, that it can be done lawfully and fairly.
And that's coming from somebody who works exactly in that field. And certainly when I undertook my recent work with Bromsgrove District Housing Trust, every role they have, they implement the Rooney Rule, and they ensure that anybody who meets the essential criteria and has, if you are from any kind of diverse background, that you automatically get an interview, because half the time there is unconscious bias in anything within recruitment of any role, and people do find that. Actually, and Laura just put in the chat there, Claire, can you add the details of that in the chat? Her board are afraid they'll be accused of reverse racism. And absolutely, there is precedent for this, and there is making sure that your recruitment processes are fair and do follow that unconscious side. Laura, we did have a few.
Sorry.
Please,
it's not even just if people apply, making sure they get the interview, like you said, with the Rooney Rule. It's you can headhunt them. You can say, we know somebody, we want to go and ask them if they're interested. So I will, definitely put details in the chat. Thanks for that.
No, absolutely. I mean, this is so much of where I think some progressive businesses are, and they'll, because recruitment has changed massively over the last couple of years, and anybody who's involved in recruitment, not just from an agency side, but in terms of anyone who's done hiring in the last 2 years, will know how much more difficult it is to hire at the minute. And those who aren't proactively headhunting are falling behind and are struggling to find the staff. And certainly when I'm asked to go headhunting, it's about ensuring that it is proper headhunting from a diverse side of it, rather than just going like for like, which I know, Lara, is something that you and I have talked about before, which is recruiting in your own image is obviously a big part of it, and does come into that anti-racism side. But the question that I had come through, what do you actually, how would you classify success in the last 12 months? What do you want to achieve?
Wow, what I want to achieve is not achievable in 12 months. So I'll start by putting my hands up. Yeah, it's not going to happen in 12 months. What my vision of the world is where you go into a boardroom and there's not just one Black person in the boardroom, because it's stressful being the only non-white person in a room. It is stressful because you carry the weight of the entire non-white race on your shoulders. It's unfair. So my vision of the future is where you go into the boardroom and there's 5 or 6, it's a mix. It's a mix, 6 men, 4 women, and it's a collection of people. It's as mixed as it is when you go into any housing organization's reception area. That's how mixed you want it to be. Okay, it's not a big deal. Now, I know that I'm not going to be able to achieve that in a year. So what I'm trying to do this year is to raise, awareness of the issue and leave behind a couple of legacies. So one of them we're currently working on at the moment. Everybody in this call is welcome to join us. We're trying to find a hashtag that will outlive my presidency, that will continue the challenge, which is, why are your boards not diverse? Obviously, that's too long to be a hashtag. So it needs to be something much shorter. The example that I give to people who are interested is the charity So White. I don't know if any of you have come across that hashtag. It's a brilliant campaign, short, sharp, sweet. If you've never heard of it before, just use Black on Board. Yeah, that'll be like I'm trying to plug my business at the same time. Thanks, Joe. Charity So White. If you've never heard of it, I imagine you already know what it's about, because you can tell by the name. It's Charity So White. And it came about by a group of Black activists in the charity sector who were challenging the leadership in the sector, which is, again, very white, very male. You wouldn't think so if you think of all the people you know who work in charities, but if you look at the CEOs of the large charities, mostly white men. Anyway, so Charity So White works. And I'm looking for the equivalent for housing. So I don't know if it's Housing So White or Representation Matters or whatever, but we're going to work together and come up with a hashtag that hopefully will outlive my 1-year presidency. And then the second thing that I'm working on is, I don't know if any of you here knew Steve Douglas, the fabulous man that was Steve Douglas. So I've had some conversations with his family, and what we want to do is create an annual award, an annual award in his name that is awarded to the board, not the individual, but the board that has done the most to diversify itself in that year. Okay, now I don't know how the metrics, the measurements will work. We're still working on the detail, but the idea is there will only be the one award. So I've got HQN, HDN, BME National, NHF, and a few other housing bodies.
Probably the CIH.
Oh yeah, CIH, that's the one. Definitely CIH, and a few others to co-own it. So it's owned across the sector, and there's only one. And I'm hoping that because it's got Steve's name on it, and Steve was all about diversification and leadership and motivating people and mentoring. Steve did wonderful things, but his challenge still remains. So I'm hoping that with his name on that, it will make it aspirational. And again, that will outlive my presidency.
The other thing I was going to say to you is, I guess there's a challenge there in terms of, and you and I have talked about this anyway, rural communities, other areas in the country where it is a very small white community, but this is where you and I have talked and actually said, well, if it isn't just, although obviously when we talk about anti-racism, there's so many communities that are within our communities, it's getting their representation onto your board. If you are an area which happens to be 99% white, well, that's fine, but you're not 99% white male. And I think this is the thing, isn't it? When we talk about and this is why I like representation matters, it's a representation of who our communities are. Yeah, but then if you're working across multiple local authorities or something like that, then you definitely need to be more diverse in race and other areas than many boards already are.
You've made a very obvious point, mate, but Matt, but I'll come back and say, on that logic alone, there is no reason why the G15 should have predominantly white boards. If you go by that argument, you know, which London borough is short of diversity in any definition of diversity, or which
100% agree. Exactly.
So, you know, I'm just focusing on the obvious. It's like what's visually obvious. Yeah. So there's no excuse. I mean, I would say Metropolitan Thames Valley are not doing too bad, but I was looking at, which one was it the other day? I can't remember now. I think they've got new board members. Was it I think it's Saffron. Hannah, was it you, Hannah?
It was Lara, it was us, but we've just kind of got some, we've listened to you and gone and dealt with the situation.
I'm so pleased.
We're dealing with it, not dealt with it, dealing with it.
but Saffron is not unique in any way. I was actually shocked to see there was only one woman on the board, let alone diversity. It's just like one white woman and all these white men. And that's not unique in any way. And I do agree with your point about the boards and senior leaderships being representative of the communities that they serve.
But then there are so many that aren't even doing that at the moment, regardless.
Exactly.
I think it's just no matter who you are, this is a challenge to you, no matter who you are at the moment.
And there are very few parts of this country that are truly have zero Black representation. We think there aren't Black people there, but there are there. And that's part of the point. We stereotype locations and assume we don't have Black people in the Cotswold, but guess what we do? Yeah.
Kate Wood has just put there the hashtag idea was skills, not skin. I quite like that.
I like that.
Hannah, bringing you in.
Hannah.
Yeah, just to come to this point, it is challenging. I mean, I live in North Suffolk and it is a predominantly white area of the country. However, that's not an excuse. And, you know, we had to look very long and hard at ourselves. And like I've said repeatedly, be brutal with ourselves that we simply weren't being good enough and doing what we needed to do. So we went out and we were proactive about it. And we've now actually recruited
I've just lost Hannah.
Was that Hannah? Was that Hannah or me? Okay.
No, I lost Hannah as well. Gersh, bring you in.
Hi. For a start, I just want to give a lot of kudos to Lara, who is the first person from a Black and minority background that I've seen that has really put us up in the firing line. I've been in the sector since 1999. You can see by the white hair, my beard. But I'm one of those who went off as a consultant purely down to the fact that in social housing, there seems to be follow the leader a little bit, and also go to the same people, go to the same consultancies, go to the same recruitment people, go even to the point where I was working with someone, I'm not going to mention any names here, who was working with me, but rather than me go to a board meeting, he wanted my colleague who was white and had worked for a big audit firm. And this is, you know, a chief executive here. Until that sort of behavior is challenged and we stop going with the status quo and we stop going to the same old people and we stop this club that is developing, a club within clubs, this will continue. And more people like Lara need to come out, and especially chief executives or leaders need to come out and say, yeah, this isn't good enough. It does happen, and acknowledge it happens. We'll still be in the same boat. So well done,
There's
Lara.
some incredible
Brilliant.
people out there in the sector who, and I mentioned this earlier on, who wouldn't even apply for a role on a board or along those lines because of experiences like yours, Gersh. And that's
Absolutely.
the bit that I found most harrowing, is that I'll speak to, I mean, goodness me, like, I mean, what, I've worked in social housing recruitment for 11 years, and yes, I've set this up in a way we've gone, but there are people in this room who have far more housing knowledge than I do. And yes, okay, I've got skills in some sectors that I'm proud of, but equally there are people in here who can absolutely add value to a board and yet may not apply because of experiences like yours. And it's that we desperately need to change. Nigel, I'm going to bring you in a moment. I'm just going to jump back to Hannah because we did lose you a second ago. Hannah, have we got you back? Have I lost Hannah? Has she gone? Lost Hannah. So I'll bring Hannah back in a moment. Nigel, let me bring you in.
Hey, Lara. Nice to see you again. Yeah, I've no doubt you'll shake things up at the CIH. I'm completely on board with what you're doing. I just wanted to turn it 180 about, and I put it in the chat box, about my experience in being a male and white. And in some respects, my lack of appointment to a board has been based not on merit, but because I'm white and the wrong colour. So the conundrum of this is that there is a numbers game. So you're absolutely right that the board is a representation of the culture. But equally, there's an increased emphasis, I think, on making that the important ratio mix rather than based on merit. Do you have any thought on that?
Yeah, I do actually. Thank you for the challenge, Nigel. What's the thing I wanted to say about this? The reason I set up Black on Board is, in a weird sort of way, responding to your question, which is it's about knowledge, skills, understanding what you're doing. Now, I don't want to put a Black person in the boardroom just because they're Black. If they're a bit of an idiot and they don't know what they're talking about, okay, then your color is irrelevant, if you know what I'm saying. So, and I challenge you, actually, I challenge you to find a Black person in a boardroom that's probably more, I don't know, 3 or 4 times more experienced or qualified than their white counterpart. Okay, so that much I know for certain is that we are asking for this opportunity, knowing that we've got the skills, the experience and the knowledge and the understanding of what we're doing behind us. We're not just saying we want to sit here because we're Black or we're brown or we're Asian. No, it's not that. I would not be sitting in my board, on the boards that I sit on now, if I did not have my skills of housing and the other sectors that I've worked in. So so that would be my reverse challenge to you, Nigel, that we just don't want it. We're not going to just bring some, I don't know, some Black person off the streets and sit on a board. No, they have to go to interview, they have to do the same tests, they have to sit in front of the panel, they have to do it. I mean, if your CV, if you don't present your board CV correctly, whether you're white or Black is slightly irrelevant. You're not going to get shortlisted. So I do things like
for a board is a really difficult thing. And I know you and I have talked about it before. It's a very different CV.
It's a difficult thing. The number of people I work with who are Black, who are struggling to get on boards because we all have to jump through hoops. I didn't get the first board position I applied for. So, I mean, there's a whole thing about, you know, the processes of becoming a board member. But what I'm saying is we're happy to jump through the hoops if we feel that we are given the same opportunity to get to the positions. Let me give you an example of something that happened to me. So I was approached by one of those big 4 recruitment agencies, and they said, oh, one of the G15 is looking for some committee chairs. And there was one committee that paid like loads of money. I think it was the head of the committee governance or something or the other. And then there was 2 sort of what I call junior, well, they called it junior committee because they paid the committee chairs less. So one of customer service, which is again, another whole story, which is why is it that customer services committee is seen to be less than the governance committee, but we'll have that discussion another day. So this big committee was paying like, I don't know, just for the sake of numbers, say 20 grand. It wasn't 20 grand, but just for the sake of numbers, 20 grand. Then the smaller committees were paying like 11. And then there was board positions, which were, I think, 15. So I looked at the ad and I go, right, I want that big committee role. I want to be the chair of the governance, whatever committee. So the lady called me back the following week, says, oh, have you had a look at the advert? What would you like? Which one of them are you interested in? And I said, well, I want this committee role. And she said to me, oh, but we thought you'd be much better for the customer services role. That's the one that we thought you'd apply for. And she said, well, the person that we're looking for this big committee role needs to have X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D. When she reeled off her list of requirements, I said, so basically you're looking for an old white man who's worked in the city. That's what they were looking for. So that is something that's happened to me, and I was approached. So now if you now multiply that by the number of people out there who are looking to get on boards, where you've got the recruitment companies already have their own agenda. They'd already assumed that I was only good enough, no disrespect to that committee, but that I was perfect for the customer services committee, but not for the governance committee. They had already made that judgment before they came to me now. Now, if you think that's happening across the sector,
and it is.
We're putting people into boxes, and then we have to sort of fight our way out of those boxes.
There is a lot of stigma that goes on from a recruitment side, and a lot of unconscious bias.
I just want to say, I don't know if that helps Nigel, because I understand Nigel's point, and I obviously I'm not a white man, but I often think all these white men must feel a bit challenged by us saying there's enough white men, we want to have a go. Does that mean there's going to be all these white men without positions to do in the world? I don't know how to answer that question, Nigel, but I can guarantee you we're going in there because we're good at what we do.
I thank you, Lara. You have and you haven't, because basically the targets are diversity and inclusion. Everybody knows them. But the conundrum for me is being in the opposite camp of being in the old-fashioned camp. I'm white and the wrong gender. So, well,
Nigel,
but then I guess you
I'm going to offer you a board position, Nigel.
No. Well,
Hope Housing, no, but seriously, Hope Housing, the organisation that I'm chair of, we're looking for a male board member. We have 5 women and 1 man. So
I'm not on a shopping expedition. I'll
use this opportunity to spread the word. I've said as chair that our next board member has to be male. I don't care, has to be male. We've got 5 women and 1 poor guy in this meeting. So there you go. So Nigel, maybe you're not applying to the right places. Anyway, sorry.
There we go. And like I say, we talked about it being a numbers game. Hannah's back with us, and then I'm going to bring in Gersh. So Hannah, I hope your signal's back working. So can we bring you back in?
Yeah, I'm here now. Yes. Hello. Sorry, having
no worries.
today. Sorry, I've dipped in and out, but I don't know what you heard. I just want to pick up on Lara's point about Saffron and this. And I live in Norfolk. Saffron is Norfolk and Suffolk based. We are a wide community. We do have pockets of diversity, like every counties, wherever you look across the country. But I challenge any housing association that says they can't do something about it. Is it easy? No. Is it something you want to look at yourself about? Absolutely. Are we always prepared as a sector to look at it and accept responsibility? No, we're not. It's the point I'd come back to. And I think you have to be quite brave as an organisation to say simply it's not good enough, we need to deal with it. So Lara's absolutely right. In fact, Lara and I spoke about it quite frequently, actually. I'm an executive, all white executive, albeit I am the female of an executive of 3. We have had an all-white board until very recently, and with only one woman on that board. So when we went out, we proactively recruited differently. So we've now got 4 new board members, 2 of whom are female, 1 is a black male, and we have a tenant board member as well. And we'll be going back out to recruit again, looking on very similar parameters. So it is possible, but it's possible with a lot of soul searching and a lot of an acceptance that we're simply not doing enough, or what we are doing isn't good enough, or we're not looking in the right places. And you know, there comes a point in time when you can't keep hiding behind barriers that we put in place for ourselves. We put the barriers there, so we need to remove them. And actually, it's about having a very honest, open conversation with your board as an executive, but also being really reflective and honest with your community and saying, we want to do better. We're not doing better. We're not doing good enough. And that's kind of what we did. It wasn't easy, and honestly, it was at times it's painfully embarrassing for us just how unrepresentative we were. And whilst by no stretch do I believe we're where we need to be, I know that we're making the right steps and we're doing all we can, but it is difficult and it's challenging. And you know, you need to get people like Lara involved, who pointed out, frankly, bloody obvious to Saf, we're in this awful situation. So it's just, my point is really, don't be afraid. And I say this all the time about our sector. We spend so much time reacting and not being proactive that we back ourselves into a corner on many issues of diversity, but this one in particular. So it's just a case of being brave as a board, being brave as an executive, and actually being brave to apply in the first place. It's not anybody. And you've got enough people around the room and around a table that will help you get there if you're the right people with the right skill set. So I thank Lara for what she did, pointing out the bloody obvious, because it gave me a very strong argument to say to our board, look, we need to think about this differently and recruit very differently. And because of that, we've started to see a change. Small, but we are seeing it. Thanks, Matt.
Change,
Cheers.
no matter how small, is at least change, and that is the key thing. That, you know, you and I have talked about this, Hannah, many times as well. It's difficult to sometimes be that business or that person standing up, actually we're not doing enough here. And as you said, there is always more that can be done, but it just takes work. But that's work that should already be in place. And somebody's actually, Jatinder's mentioned in the chat, skin colour should be irrelevant, but until it's truly the case, we need to recognise the bias to date against people of colour. This is evidenced by the current makeup of boards and exec teams, despite the continuous attempts of talented people of colour to apply for such positions.
And my only other point is, just because you have one person on your board that represents some form of diversification, that doesn't mean you've done your job. In fact, you've only just started. So you don't go, oh, tick the box, move on. That's just ridiculous. We need to continue.
Where tokenism comes in and all the failures with it.
So you've got a few hands up, Matt.
Exactly, absolutely.
No, brilliant. Right, so Gersh, I'm going to bring you in.
This is the last thing I'm going to say. You're a piece of
okay, thank you.
It just also a response to the conversation with Nigel as well, is that how can boards, especially in the cities, say they're really representing the communities they serve if they haven't got the right cross-section of people? You know, if they're all white within the G15, let's just say, how can they really say that, you know, they're representing the views at all? It's not just having black and minority, but it's having females and having those with disability. So naturally, there should be some quota to say, right, it's not about just having the quota for the sake of it. It's for the fact that we're representing our community and the tenants that we serve. So yes, there should be some monitoring, and yes, there should be increased numbers from different backgrounds.
Particularly as it's so unbalanced at the moment. And yeah, absolutely agree. Sally, let me bring you in. Good to have you with us today. Got you on mute.
There we go.
There
Thanks, Matt. Absolute wonderful discussion as usual. Lara made some wonderful points. Anna literally just touched on some of the things I wanted to touch on. Boards have to be absolutely brave in making the right decision and going for specific targets and increasing that diversity on the board. But I want to take a step back in terms of, you know, representation and things like that. I think is very important. But there's also an aspect within the ethnic minority communities that also need to be absolutely aware of the opportunities that are out there for them as well. Because when it comes to board level and sitting on a board, for instance, we do have a lot of accountants, IT professionals, you know, and consultants from the ethnic minorities that are very knowledgeable and experienced, that can work within finance teams, they can they do all sorts of different professions that can come on board and actually add value to the board, but they are not aware of the position and opportunities when it comes to making an impact within their own communities or within their own societies in terms of making decisions and helping make that decision to affect their communities. Because when you're having all white panels, for instance, making decisions for everyone, and on top of that, making decisions that affect ethnic minorities, they don't necessarily know the experience and the issues within what they're trying to make the decisions over. And I give you a prime example in terms of having that racial awareness or the ethnic minority on board. For instance, Welsh government trying to do WHQS2, which is Welsh Housing Quality Standard. Now they're trying to implement a second aspect of it. And as part of that, they want ethnic minorities or registered social landlords to take into account of their tenancy. So if their race, religion, disability, and all of those things, so they want registered social landlords to take into account those family makeups. But in order to do that, they're not actually understanding what's required in terms of, well, if you have an ethnic minority, they have different requirements, for instance, for their bathroom usages, that is not part of the agenda that all housing associations are aware of. And by having a discussion with them, me going in, for instance, having a discussion with them, they recognize the absolute need to have somebody like myself from that representation to give them that understanding of what's required and how there's been a disservice to certain communities because people that are making decisions are not aware of them.
And actually, Judith is back up in the chat there, saying achieve DHA accreditation. We are challenging the housing organisations to demonstrate how they are anti-racist, and that needs to be from top down to bottom up. And it's that this is where I think getting the board involved is so vital in this conversation.
Absolutely, and having those people that can bring that perspective forward and have it discussed on the board table or wherever a decision has been made actually makes a better service for everyone. And not only that, you improve the profitability and everything else, because if you're providing a good service for everyone or ethnic minorities, then you're not costing too much in order to make repairs in those properties and all of those things, because it works both ways. You provide good service, it actually upkeeps the properties and everything else. I just wanted to bring that point across, but most importantly, making sure that we show the representation that's required, but telling people within the ethnic minorities that have those expertise, those skills, those experience, and saying to them and encouraging them, apply for board membership. I've been on a board for over 9 months now, and since I've been on the board, I've constantly spoke to professionals around me and say, look, do this from ethnic minority background, and actually giving them that opportunity. Go and research into it, get yourself on a board and have an impact within your local community, within your society, to make sure that the disservice and the deprivation that happens within certain sector of the community because they're not represented, you need to make that service better for them. And if you have that,
I'm going to bring in Lauren. I've only got 10 minutes left, but I completely agree with your point, and thank you so much. And obviously, congratulations for 9 months on the board and for learning so much yourself. Maureen, I'm going to bring you in.
Thanks very much, Matt. Fabulous session. Not in any particular order, 3 points. Firstly, it breaks my heart that somehow we have to justify that diversity does not equal talent. I take that for read, and I think most people in this room, but it feels to me that sometimes we're justifying why we need diversity. For me, diversity equals talent and opportunity not being equal. So the talent and the intelligence is there, and I'm quoting the bloke who invented the WordPress. His company has a presence in over 60 countries. They don't care who you are, where you are, as long as you're doing the job. And I think When the bottom line is money, we have less of a problem with meritocracy. Look at professional football. Sorry, I'm always using that example. But there was a time when black footballers, black people were told they couldn't play football. We will come up with nonsense when we don't want to change something. So that's the first thing, that talent and intelligence is equally distributed amongst the population. The second point I would make, and it's very hard to be in Lara's role, and I just want to shout out and give support, exactly for the reasons you were talking about. Part of the problem is even marginalized, racialized, discriminated people have also absorbed some of the and the racism and sexism, which is partly to do with not putting yourselves forward. We forget, we can't see. And I use myself as an example. I think I'm more than capable of being a board member. And lo and behold, I am now a board member. I feel like I've taken up Sally's challenge. I was doing a lot of sniping on the side, had my eyes open by seeing people who were encouraging me to go forward. Next thing, I'm a board member for a Norfolk Housing Association. The stereotype, we're all white, we can't find anyone. And I can assure you that I went through a competitive process. The chair gave me feedback and said, you did a great interview, just like any other person who's got the capability. So this idea that if you're in a white area, what about those tenants and customers who may also be from an ethnic minority background? I haven't seen anybody on the board, they stay invisible. And I've actually done the reverse, Sally. I've gone into an area in order to be the first black person on their board as a way of signalling to the tenants who may be also black or ethnic minorities or gay, that the board here is serious about doing something different. And I totally agree about grabbing opportunities. But as I say, you have to understand that in context. A lot of people who've been oppressed, sometimes our vision is oppressed as well. And we have to understand that sometimes we need people to be pointing the way forward. And I spent most of my working life doing exactly that, but not putting myself in that position. So I do, I have run mentoring programs, I still do. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm also aware that is a small drop in the ocean. So I'm glad for Laura's campaign. It takes a lot of guts to say the things that she has said in her very high profile role. And that is part of the journey. The struggle is painful and difficult. I just wanted to commend what Lara's doing. And I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I just want to say that I'm out and out supporting her. And I'm not sure if I'm speaking on behalf of Housing Diversity Network, but I don't think I'll get into trouble for saying that. So thank you for letting me speak, Matt.
No, thank you for coming along today, Maureen. I know we've talked a couple of times via LinkedIn, and it's nice to kind of meet you, albeit electronically. But I couldn't agree more with what you said there. And I think somebody in the chat, Sinead, has said, are we okay to make organisations aware of Lara's vision and aims for the presidency? And anyone who's put in the chat there, this presidency is now live. It is up on the CIH news. We are going full steam, and I'm hoping everyone in here really gets behind that and can help drive it forward, because we can only do it with as loud a voice as we possibly can. Mal, let me bring you in.
Hi Matt, hi Lara, good to see you both. Well done Lara, fighting the fight. I wanted to pick up on a point that really Sani was saying, and it's for ethnic minorities really, that there is a mystery around boards where you think you need to be an expert finance person, an expert development person. Boards exist to challenge and set strategy, and we can all do that, no matter where you're from. And more so, I think our housing boards need lived experience more than anything else, especially in today's world. So it's really just to support Sani really that, and we need to do something with our ethnic minorities to tell them that boards aren't these collection of people who are experts. Boards are should be these experts, these collections of people who are inexperts but experts in lived life.
And that's the key thing, and it's realizing that there is something that everybody can add. There really is, and it's just knowing and finding the right board for you. Lara, I'm aware we've only got a few minutes left, but do come in on that, please.
Jump in and use up the last few minutes. So
there's a question we still had for you that we didn't ask, which is how can everyone here support your campaign?
All right, okay, I'll come to that. How can you all help? I'll let you know in a minute. First of all, you can shoe aid. The fun part of my campaign is collecting shoes for this charity called Shoe Aid that gives shoes to homeless families and now families that are in poverty. And you'll understand with the cost of living crisis, if you can't afford to pay your electricity bill, the last thing you can do is afford to spend $39.99 on a pair of shoes. So send your shoes to Shoe Aid. And if you're coming to a CIH event, bring a pair of shoes. I'm trying to make it so that if you haven't got a pair of shoes, you can't come in. You can't come into the room. So what I wanted to say is that I love these kind of events, but I have an issue with these kind of events. These kind of events are usually attended by the people that don't need to be here. The people that do need to be here and not the people that are here. Because I imagine everyone here is here today because you believe in the cause and you're already sold. You are the choir. And what I need is for you to go out there and give the people who are not in the choir, the people standing outside the church or looking across the road from the church, the information, the motivation, the passion to join the religion. And I call it a religion because we all know that equality and diversity is a good thing. We don't need to explain it to people. I think we just people need faith to go ahead and do it anyway. So I always talk about people in the room. I've always wanted to also say something about in the sector. The social housing sector is not short of diverse staff. We are a very diverse sector, and that's why I get frustrated. We have the talent in-house. If I said to you, point out your most fabulous housing officer, there'd be a whole range, you know, there'd be Amina and Yemi and a whole bunch of people. But you get to the boardroom, where's Amina, Yemi and Tunde? Where are they? You know, and that's why I get frustrated that we have the talent within the sector. We shouldn't have to be stressing ourselves to find our people. And we can, you know, what's the word? Not cross-contaminate. What's the other word? Cross-fertilize staff from organizations to other ones. And I know HDN are doing that really well. So in terms of the information and the knowledge, it's there. One of the things I like about my campaign is I don't have to do any research. The research is already done. There is tons and tons and tons of reviews. There's the McGregor Smith review. There's so many of them. You know, the reports are out there. I was doing some research lately, and Monzo, the bank, Monzo, have some fabulous stuff on their website about diversity in the boardroom at senior levels. Who would have thought that? A bank. Now, my niece, who's online somewhere, hiding in the background, is doing some research at the moment on the demographics of the top housing associations, and also, she doesn't know this bit yet, the tech companies. Now, I've already done the research on the tech companies. The tech companies are more diverse than we are. Their boardrooms and their exec teams are more diverse than the housing sector. And I think we should be ashamed of that. So that's where I'll end and say there are organizations here that can help us. We've got HDN, we've got DAHA, we've got TIPAD. National Housing Federation have lots of good policies and procedures in their EDI, and they've got a focus on leadership in the boardroom. So it's not that we don't know what to do. It's not that we don't have the information. It's like there's
Lara, how can people get in touch with you? Because Judith has put there, how could Lara share her email address? Would love to link in and see how DAHA can
I'm on. Please follow me on LinkedIn. I have a presidential campaign group. I'm going to find the link now and put it in LinkedIn. So anyway, I'll end there. Let me just find the link so I can put it in LinkedIn.
I'll share it on LinkedIn anyway.
Yeah, so if you join the presidential campaign on LinkedIn, then we can have a conversation on there and spread the word.
But thank you everybody for coming today. Thank you everyone who could attend, for your thoughts, for your guidance, for your honesty and your feedback. Like I said, this is but the start, and I know this is day 2, but this is something which really needs to run with. So let's go, let's work collaboratively and let's really push it. Lara, thank you so much for being brave and for really pushing this, because I know it was a challenge to everybody to kind of push anti-racism in the boardroom as a policy in the first place. So massive kudos to you for pushing that and for sticking by what you knew needed to be done. To anyone who wants to come to next roundtable, absolutely, we run these every single Tuesday, 11 till 12. I did find out this morning next week's guest speakers had to rearrange, so there isn't a topic as of yet for next Tuesday. So if anybody would like to bring something up, please let me know. Would love to hear from you. We've discussed absolutely anything and everything on these, and you can find the Social Housing Roundtable LinkedIn group and look back at all the past recordings. So if there is anything you'd like to bring up, let me know. But in the interim, just a massive thank you to Lara. Please follow her on LinkedIn if you aren't already, and let's get behind this and look forward to seeing you all in the very near future. If anybody is looking for board role, I do know of 2 that are going on at Spring. They're looking for somebody with finance and they're looking for somebody in asset management. So again, they're not going out to the big recruiters or anything like that. They're going through word of mouth. So if anybody here or knows somebody, particularly from a more diverse background, who you think would be good, please let me know. Thanks everybody, and see you all at the next event. Cheers.
Thank you.